And I probably, we have an introduction now by Anna. Incidentally, Anna arranged all of this, as you can tell. I am thoroughly unfamiliar with the event, but she did it all and arranged it, and God bless her.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I think you all know me. I'm Anna Weiss, and I volunteer here at IA Library. I'd like to introduce the next author because Joey Iannino is our next author, and he had emailed me when he found out about this event, and he asked if he could participate and if we were taking remote authors, and I said, well, it's not a hybrid event, but I'm happy for your interest in our event. And then I noticed in his email, he had a tagline, and it was an Amazon tagline, and I clicked on it, and it brought me to his Amazon page, and he's a very prolific writer. I believe he's written 10, maybe 11 books since his last book. And I started to read it. And the book that I'm going to read from and talk about is entitled 630. So I began to read it. You know how Amazon has you read a few early pages of the manuscript. And I thought, these characters are really relatable. And the dialogue was very believable. And I felt myself immersed in it, and I could just easily imagine it, the scene. And so let me tell you a little bit about the book. It's sort of like a slice of life. It's a novel. It's a work of fiction. And though we don't usually promote works of fiction, well, we do. It's something that Carla alluded to with Italian Americana. You're not really looking for fiction, but sometimes that Italian American influences the work that you're writing. And I found that to be the case with this. And so I invited Joey Iannino to join us today. And so the story is about a young Italian-American author, about 30 years old, who has moved out west, and he's a writer, much like the author, Italian-American descent, who's decided to come back to the Midwest and live with his parents for about the summer to reconnect with the Midwest and see if maybe he belongs here and maybe he should try writing from here, because he's grown up in Lombard, he's grown up in the Midwest, and he'd like to make a go of it here. So I'm going to read two excerpts. The first excerpt is about what got, the story is again about fiction, is fictional, but the first excerpt is about what gets the main character of the book interested in writing. And I'd like to read that excerpt because I thought it could relate to many of us writers. I'm not a writer, I shouldn't include myself in that, but writers, authors, and maybe some of you who are on the fence about writing. Maybe it'll inspire you to start writing, because I found it inspirational. And the second excerpt, like I said, this is more like a slice of life type of novel. The second excerpt, in my interactions with Joey, he said it's not really an Italian-American story. And I said, well, you know, I read it and I found it to be an Italian-American story. I got to get into the mind of a young Italian-American author, you know, what it's like to grow up in an Italian-American family. And you really get that influence here. In fact, he writes about Taylor Street Festival. What can be more Italian-American than that? So the first excerpt, like I said, is what got the main character, who happens to be a writer, much like Joey, interested in writing. So from that, I'll begin. It says, writing was the only job that brought me tears of passion. All the other jobs had brought me tears of pain. I had worked many jobs before I started writing books, all ones I had sought out. Writing was the only job that found me, the only one that ever felt right. Only when I was writing did I feel like I existed. I had had enough of my current occupation. I had no passion for it. I had been working as a union rigging electrician on the sets of movies and TV shows, but I didn't walk out mid-shift. After the season had ended and the company had gone on hiatus for summer, I decided not to return. I took a few months off of societal life to do absolutely nothing. And then one day, I just started writing. I didn't go to college for writing or any other degree. I chose labor jobs instead. I chose to make money quickly. And then along the way, after all those meaningless jobs that had brought me nothing but money, writing chose me. Writing found its way into my heart, my soul, showing me that there is nothing to it but the beautiful sickness that blooms inside, leaving you to feel alive, sending you on an endless high. I didn't try to become a writer by reading brilliant minds when I was young, idolizing great wordsmiths, aspiring to be the next literary genius. No, 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 no. I didn't pick up a book until I was 25 years old. All I did was write out of pain of existence. All I did was accept that life and death are real, which led me to today, the shed, my writing cottage. I should say that the main character carves out a little writing space for himself, this writing cottage in his parents' yard in Lombard. So now I'm gonna shift themes to, like I said, there is an Italian-American vibe in here, even though the author may not see it, I see it. So let me, I think this is Memorial Day. Let me set the stage. And I think they're getting ready for Memorial Day. So let me start. Rounding the corner of my block, I heard it. I heard the opera, my father bellowing Pavarotti or Bocelli or whoever was hollering with him. Synchronized, a symphony. I'm putting up a new flag, my dad said as I walked my bike up the driveway. We had two flags hanging on either side of the garage, an Italian and an American. Why is that? I asked, not sweaty with lack of enthusiasm on my failed bike ride. The red is fading. He was talking about the Italian flag. It's starting to look like an Irish flag. We don't want people to get the wrong impression, he laughed. Then again, there's not much difference. His phone started ringing, the ringing that I thought would haunt me for the rest of my life. Even his phone was Italian, blasting the Italian national anthem every time someone called. He had had that ringtone for years and never changed it. He loved it. A proud Italian man he was. But the man's phone never stopped. He got more phone calls than the president. The ringtone was so obnoxious and loud that the neighbors could hear it. I was humming the Italian national anthem in my sleep. I knew it better than the Star-Spangled Banner. My dad wasn't like most American dads. He didn't play or watch sports. The closest thing to a sport that he had ever played was stickball or softball in the Italian neighborhood streets of Chicago, where their bases consisted of a sewer cap, fire hydrant, and a random car. I never played catch with my father. He never taught me how to throw, lift weights, run sprints. No, my father taught me about culture outside of the American one. He taught me about cuisines. I grew up around food, lots and lots of food. As for American living, I had to teach myself weight training and sports, and I was more than okay with that. I was taught love. Most importantly, I understood how fortunate I was to have a father, as many did not have me. So I'll end with that. Isn't it beautiful? I'd like to cut to Joey Iannino, our next author and speaker. Thank you for joining
Thank you.
us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. I didn't expect to get emotional when you're reading that, but I did. And that was a lot better than I would have done. So thank you. I won't get on 630 just yet. I'll talk about myself first by saying that yes, the book is a little memoir based, but my life and my career is short, but I've gone through a lot in this career. And to add to the about me, I will say I didn't grow up a reader or a writer. I struggled with reading and comprehension my entire school career. It was my biggest insecurity. I didn't study English or literature. I didn't go to college. I didn't read an entire book till I was 26. Before then, I had no interest in reading something as simple as a magazine article. You couldn't pay me to read. But then I took my biggest insecurity and made it my greatest strength. And the past 3 years has been pretty wild. Yes, I've produced many books, I believe many books in this 3 years, but I've been on the move for the past 3 years. So I wrote out a timeline that confuses me, and I'm trying to say it simply because I haven't been in one place for that long. In 2018, this is what got me into writing. In 2018, I went through a breakup. And please let me know if this audio sounds good.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, thank you. In 2018, I went through a breakup, and that kind of started it. I put life on pause. And then in 2019, I began writing, but I didn't write professionally or in a professional sense. I wrote on Instagram. I was using Instagram as my writing platform. So I would write out a caption, fill out the max amount of words or word count or character limit, and post a photo. But it wasn't about the photo, it was about the words I was putting on. So when I outgrew that in August of 19, I challenged myself to write a book. I didn't know how to write a book, and I just went for it. And that's when I started my first book, Self-Education, a personal growth book. I finished that late that year. In early 2020, I was in the revising stages. And that's what brought me into this addiction of writing. While I was editing Self-Education, I wanted to take a crack at fiction. So I began a book called Sage. And I wrote that and put it on hold. I wrote the first draft, printed it out, put it to the side. And then I published Self-Education in May of 2020. May of 2020 or June of 2020, I went and spent the summer in Los Angeles. And this kind of started my travels. So I went to Los Angeles for the summer, stayed with family in the summer of 2020. For 3 months, I wrote 3 novels in 3 months. I left and came back to Lombard, lived with my parents, and worked on those books. Got them ready for publication. It seemed that stories came natural to me. I'm a visual learner, so scenes and details do come naturally to me. And that summer, or the end of the summer, and sorry, again, it's confusing, this back and forth. In the winter of 2020, I drove out to Denver, and I went back to the book that I first started, Sage, and I worked on that. And during that time, I wrote another novel. And there's a trend that starts happening is while I'm editing and revising a book, I'm also writing a book at the same time. I sort of have to be doing something like that. So I wrote this book, and then I left Denver in May of 2021, last summer, and I went back to my parents in Lombard. I worked on a book I had started there too, Midwest Stories. And I was revising that, but I got bored with this life. Last summer, I was basically bored, and it wasn't what it used to be. My hometown wasn't what it used to be, and we were all growing up, and it just seemed like it wasn't clicking for me. So I started 630. I just started writing, and that was a project because I was revising a book, so I had to write a book. So I did that, and in the end of the summer, I think I left in October. I left in October last year, drove back to Colorado, stayed with family, worked on 630, and wrote a novella. Then I finally, the start of this year, at New Year's Day, drove to Los Angeles and have written 2 books since I've been here, and I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. This is probably the longest I've been in one location in the past 3 years. With all this, you'd think I was an aspiring writer all along, but no, that's not the case. And My dream wasn't to write books. My dream still isn't to write books. My dream was to create a life I never needed a vacation from, and that's what I'm doing. So writing happens to be the right job for me. I've worked many jobs that didn't work. So I stick with writing, and I will stick with writing. Now back to 630, because I know this is a Italian-American themed, and I guess I didn't really realize it at the time when writing it. But yeah, I created a character with a family, and like I said, it's almost memoir based, but I created this character where I can use this character now and speak more about my heritage and what influences me. But really, it's travel, it's food, it's culture that inspires me to write. Learning. Every time I was on the road or flying and visiting another city or back and forth, I saw something new. I had a new set of eyes, a new perspective, and I would write. It would just inspire me to write. But my parents, growing up Italian-American, my parents were just very encouraging and open to exploring in the food I was around. And there's all these senses I'm using. And I put that all in my writing. Everything I see, taste, smell, hear, feel, the love, the aroma of everything is put into my writing. So I don't strictly write Italian-American, and I think I've only have a couple short stories that relate to it. And I guess 630 is the closest thing to that. But that is how I came about that. And I realized after reading 630, after reading it 6 times, I saw that I call it a farewell to people, places, and things. It was a goodbye to my hometown. I don't plan on living there ever again. I don't plan on living in the Midwest ever again. I am attracted to the mountains and the sea. That's where my heart is. So it was a farewell. And I don't know how else to say it. It's really what it was. I hope I covered enough. I know the timeline is kind of wacky, but it's only been 3 years and it feels like a lot longer than that. I dedicated everything to writing, and I am. And now that I'm writing full time, it requires a lot of discipline and sacrifice, and that's what I live for. So I don't know.
Sacrifice is a great last word. Any quick questions for Joey?
What's 630 stand for?
The area code.
Sort of upper middle class suburb.
Thank you.
Back to visit. When you come back to visit your father, you certainly are obligated to do that at least 2 or 3 times a year. Come and see us at the Casa Italia.
I will.
We're here every Wednesday afternoon until the end of time.
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joey, for being with us.